Gary, good evening.
Good evening, and I apologise for not being in vision. We have an almighty thunderstorm going on at the moment, and connectivity is a bit flaky, to say the least.
That's it. We get a few days of sunshine, don't we? And then we just get thunderstorms. We've not got any here at the moment, but it's very dark outside. It makes it, like this time last week, it was nice and bright, but now it's dark. We've got lots of things we wanted to catch up on. We haven't done a sort of normal news show, so we'll keep this brief this week. But yeah, we've got. I want to catch up on some of the stuff I've been working on. We've got a couple of builds, and I want to talk about my kitchen stuff now it's finished, so we can put the smart home stuff in there as well. Also, I want to start off with saying thanks to Dan Phillips from Korg for being on last week's show. That was really great, and a lot of positive feedback on last week's show as well, and the week before. When we're talking about optimizing Windows with Pete Brown from Microsoft. So we've had a couple of really good guests on, really, and some great feedback. So thanks to everybody that sent the feedback in, and hello to the new listeners as well who've joined from those shows as well. Hopefully we still have old listeners with us as well. So we wanted to try and keep it balanced, and we'll do different topics on different shows over the weeks. I think, Gary, you quite enjoyed the live demos of the 2600 synth.
I certainly did, yes.
That was pretty good, doesn't it? That was
really good last week. So I really enjoyed that. I still love that user interface. I think it's such a good one.
yeah, definitely. So, a couple of things I wanted to touch on this week. So we'll talk about the smart home stuff in a minute, but we did have a couple of builds. I did want to briefly mention, but there's not been a huge amount of news from Microsoft on the builds. Mainly, I think that's because they're getting ready to release the 24H2. So we're seeing a few bits and pieces. So over on the beta channel, there was that which is still running 23H2. There was a couple of additions. A tidied up system tray, which is loses the little notifications bell, and a smaller timestamp on there, so they must have decided that they preferred to have that. There was a couple of fixes and updates for Paint, and that was about it with that one. So that was the beta build, and the dev channel, which is running 24H2, and there was just a couple of fixes around that with the sharing, a couple of tweaks on the sharing as well. So they are doing some more stuff with the Android pairing as well, so that you can share content easier between your phone and your PC, which is quite good. They always seem to get disgruntled iPhone users when they do stuff like this, but I think it's just easier, isn't it? Because the APIs are there to do stuff with phones on Android than it is on iOS. Or iPhone. Was it iOS now? Or are we on iPhone OS? What is it nowadays?
I think it's iPhone OS, but I lose track.
iPhone, yeah. So I think they're pretty close to finishing off 24H2, but there's a lot of little tweaks and things like that in 24H2, but there's no major new features in it. But it's good to see those improvements. Now, what else have I been working on this week? Over on Digital Lifestyle, I've got. I talked about the Roland D-110, didn't I? A couple of weeks ago. Module, which you've still got somewhere, haven't you? Yeah.
I have, yes, and still using.
Yeah, so I posted the video about that. So I did a sort of history of the D-110 and went through some of the presets and a little bit how it works and the architecture of the D-110 and why it was important for PC gamers as well, because it was the basis of the MT32, which was kind of not so much in this country, but especially in the States, it was the basis of sort of computer game MIDI. I think some of the LucasArts took advantage of those games, I think like Monkey Island, and I think so instead of having the little FM sound chips that were in some of the sound blasters, you could actually use a proper sounds. And the D-110 was a good one for that, and the MT32 became the little computer version of it, the module of it. So I did the full video of that last week, but this week I've also posted my first sound set based on that for the ModWave. So if you've got a Korg ModWave, you can download this pack. It's about 200 meg, and what I did is I sampled. It took me a while, but I sampled every sound of the presets of the D110, and then ported those over to Korg format, imported in ModWave, created performances for it, and you can download that. So the classic sort of fantasy and atmosphere sounds are all available in ModWave. So it sort of brings that into a modern way, so you can recreate those classic 80s sounds with a bit of modern kit as well. So included in the video is how to import them as well, which people always ask me. So that's in there. If you've got a wave state, then stay tuned, because I've got a special pack for that. I've also made some new sounds with it as well. So I've took the samples, the old samples, and incorporated those to create some new sounds on the ModWave as well. And one other video I did this week was the Yazoo Don't Go. You remember that for your 80s music?
I certainly do, yeah.
Yeah. So I created a little step-by-step tutorial on how to create the brass sound on that, which is the main sort of melody sound you hear when the song starts and it goes all the way through. Had to be very clever. What I wanted to do is kind of document the procedure, because somebody asked me to do it. So the procedure of creating my sort of procedure workflow for creating these sounds by ear. So some cases, like when I've got the physical synth in front of me, like the Gen, it's just side by side, and you press one note, press the other note on both keyboards at the same time, and you can kind of do it that way. With this, I was just using Spotify to listen to it. But of course, you can't have a lot of Spotify in your video because it gets caught by the copyright algorithms. So there's short clips of the original in there to show the workflow, but not get copyright caught. So I've done that anyway. So that video's there, so you can sort of see my workflow on there. So that's the updates from me. So any updates from you, or I can talk about the smart home?
Well, we can do that, but let's talk Google for a moment, because obviously they had their big event fairly shortly. And
yes, they did, yeah.
By Chromecast. Now, many of our listeners.
I didn't read about this.
Yeah, probably have and at some point used the little streaming dongle that Google produced, the Chromecast, and most phones were compatible with it, and it was really useful. It's no more, but it is. But I say it's no more. It's kind of just been renamed in some ways with some extra features. So there's a thing now called the let's get this right, because I always get the name of this right. The Google TV Streamer, which is more like a set-top box than a dongle, and it's got things like it's got an infrared thing. It's got some really nice features in for smart home users. It's because it's got Matter built in and other hubs built into it. It's USB-C powered, dedicated Ethernet port. It's really, really good in that respect. And it has Gemini built in, which is Google's new AI system. So yeah, it's interesting, and it's tries to show. It reminds me of some of the other older boxes. It's like a small wedge shape, which looks quite good, and the controller looks quite good on it. Costs about $100 in the States. We haven't seen it over here yet, but we will, I'm sure, soon enough. The other thing which I didn't know if you spotted in your penchant for foldables, but the new Google Pixel Fold has been released as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm kind of almost over the foldable things now. Not from my experience so much, but I've seen a few friends. In fact, my son's got a Flip, and someone else I know has got the Fold, the older generation ones, and they just don't seem to last as long as a traditional phone. And if you're keeping my Duo never had any issues with it, apart from Microsoft. But yeah, I do wonder, maybe Google's one of these is well built, but I always think that they've got more points of failure.
Yes. Now, interestingly enough, they haven't called this the Fold 2, because it is actually the second generation of the Fold. It's the Pro Fold, which is hinting at the fact it's got the Tensor G-Force chip in it and AI features and the like. And it's quite a big display actually when you fold it out. It's very bright, and it's an 8-inch across display when you fold it out and unfold it, which is quite something really.
That's like a tablet, really, then, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yeah. And I just love the name of the display. It's the Super Actua Flex display. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. But yeah, gorgeous screen though. Very hard, very bright. They went on about the fact it's 2,700 nits of brightness. But yeah, it's cool. And it's slightly boxier because it's got a steel hinge covered by aluminium alloy, and it's Gorilla Glass Victus 2 in front and back. Victus 2s are their new super strong Gorilla Glass, so it should last, we would think. But obviously, we have noted these hinge mechanisms don't always last that long. So yeah, and I know someone's been playing with one of these for the last few weeks, and he's quite enamored with it. Says it's one of the better foldables. So there we go. That I mean, there's other bits of news from the Google event, but those are the sort of the two main things I picked on. There's a new watch as well, which looks quite good. The Pixel Watch 3, bigger screen, bigger size, and better battery life.
The Chromecast is, I think I can see why they've done it in the little set-top box and things, but I think it's sad because they've lost the simplicity of the Chromecast. The dongle, it was just a HDMI thing, just plugged straight in, and it was really simple, and it didn't have a UI or anything like that, did it? You didn't have a remote. It just plugged in, and you operated it from your phone. I know one of my sons uses it a lot for streaming stuff from his phone to his TV, and probably doesn't necessarily need all these extra features, but he might use them, I suppose. But so the Chromecast fits the bill perfectly for him, so he's got that, and he just plugs in, and they're cheap and they just work. So yeah, it's kind of a shame, but yeah, I can see why Google's doing it. But sometimes these things go overly complex, don't they? Now, I mean, we've got so many set-top boxes. You can get one from EE, and you get your Now TV, and you've got your Sky box, and you can have all these different boxes, all these different services. But everything seems to cost a lot in the services now. That's the problem. But
Indeed.
yeah, I kind of I think he's lamenting this because I was talking to him about it, and he said, "Well, I really like the Chromecast. He just plugs it because he's not got a TV. He's just got a monitor, and he just plugs into one of the monitor ports. So it's a shame, I think. But yeah, well, interested to see what happens. I mean, we've had Google TV boxes for some time, haven't we? So it's kind of going around in a circle a bit.
Yeah.
I do like, you're right, I do like the foldable. An 8-inch foldable, that's almost like the Surface Go then, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's
almost that size, isn't it? Yeah. Perhaps that's eventually the way that it'll go. Probably a triple deck foldable, so it's it folds 3 times, and then that gets you a nice big tablet. But I think the durability of them is still the issue with those, and yeah, I wonder how long they last. It'd be interesting to see how they are in sort of 2-year cycles, beyond that, because so expensive, aren't they, that you really want to keep it more than 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, got a bit of a lag on there. Yeah.
The connection. Okay. My broadband dropped to something I hadn't seen in a very long time. 1,200 bytes, 1,200 baud, sorry, which is not good.
Yeah, caught up now. There was just a bit of a lag. Yeah, interesting stuff from the Google event. Yeah, it's hardware. I think is getting more and more difficult to sell, isn't it? Because it's harder to get in the major changes. But the foldables is still an area where there is improvements. Okay, so I'll tell you about then the Home Connect. And so, as you know, had my kitchen done. Eventually, kitchen's back now. And so when you get in new appliances, they're all smart home enabled now. I don't think there's very few of them that aren't. So I've got the Neff appliances. I don't know if you've seen these. I think Neff are part of Bosch, aren't they? Same group. So I installed the Home Connect app, which is what it uses. I've got to say, one of the easiest things to set up so far that I've done smart home wise. There's a QR code on the sticker, a QR code on it on the devices, on the oven and on the hob and dishwasher and everything else. So you get you set your app up, register, and then you just says add device. You scan the QR code. It asks you for your local Wi-Fi. You put that in, and it sends it over to the device. And it was really quick and easy getting those set up and running. And now I can see on there. I can see like my dishwasher is currently running, and I can see it on there where it's up to. I could pause it. I can see how long it's got remaining. There's things like you can, when you put your dishwasher tablets, you get a box of say 50 or whatever. You put in the app that you've just got a box of 50, and it will count them down and tell you when to reorder and that kind of thing. And it gives you like shortcuts to your favorite programs and that kind of thing. And you think, well, it's a bit gimmicky, which I suppose kind of is. You can do everything from the device, from say the dishwasher. I don't use this to start it because you normally put the tablet and press start and close it and that's it. But it hasn't got because it's a sort of a built-in one, there's no display on the front of it, so it doesn't tell you how long you've got left. So if you have put it on and you think, oh, I really need that pan that I've put in there, all you've got is a little red light to show it's running. So that's where the phone app is actually quite handy. You can have a look at it, but there are things you can do with it through Alexa routines as well. So I suppose you trigger some kind of routine when your dishwasher finishes, do something else and that kind of thing. But I've also got it control for the hob as well, so you can turn the hob on and you can see the zones on the hob and what the power levels are and that kind of thing, and you can actually control it from here as well. Same thing with the ovens. There's a little additional lock thing that when you set it up, by default you can't remotely start it, which kind of makes sense, but you can then say, no, I want to be able to have that remote start feature, which if someone had left something in there, then you're going to remote start it and you can't see that somebody's left something in there. So it is that you've got to take that into account. But you can remote start this and sort of go through and set the programs on there as well. And there's even the sort of the smart home thing or the smart assistants where you can say what kind of food you want to cook. If you want to cook a pizza, it can set the oven up one way. To be honest, I've not really used any of that side because normally you just put the oven on. But yeah, you can. I don't know if the camera can see that, but yeah, it's you can search for a dish, so you can put your cooking chicken and it can set the recommended mode, because it does feel a bit daunting when you first put it on. Even from from the front panel, it's got a touch screen on it. There's about 12 different cook modes, and it took me a while to figure out which is just cook a normal oven. Because there's circular mode and there's gentle circulation mode and there's top mode and pre mode, and they've got grills in there. So but yeah, once you figure out the default one, it's actually what you want. It's not too bad. So for this one, the top oven, I've not enabled remote start, so I couldn't actually start it without changing that setting on there as well. And like I said, they've got Alexa routines in there as well. There are a few things that are useful. Probably the one is the oven is up to temperature notification that you get on your watch or on the phone. So you put the oven on and you put the food in, but you want it to be preheated to 180. So you put the preheat to 180, then you can go away and do something else, and it'll alert you to say, right, it's reached the temperature, and then you can go and cook with it. Same with your program finishes. You cook something for 15 minutes and it'll tell you when that 15 minutes up on your phone and that kind of thing as well. So in the past I would have used an Alexa timer, but now you can actually build that in. So I haven't tried any more advanced things like when the oven reaches temperature, do something else, or set any smart routine. So but it all works. It's probably some of the smart stuff like this, I'm going to cook chicken or whatever. I don't know that I'd ever used that. There are some things that perhaps would be interesting for you on there. There's a thing about using Smart Start with your peak off-peak tariffs. Maybe you've seen, you could explain why would I want to do that?
Right, why would you want to do that? So you could potentially save some money. Because if you've got off-peak tariffs and say you somehow managed to sign up to one of the EV tariffs that some of these electricity companies do. So, like mine, where I get a few hours every night, which are at particularly low rate, like 20 or 30 pence less than the peak rate. You might want your cooker to actually run at that time. Though why you'd want to run your cooker overnight, I'm not quite sure. But there are off-peak times as well where you might want to save some money. But dishwashers and washing machines, you could certainly see you would want to run those at off-peak times.
Yeah, that makes sense with it. So your dishwasher, in fact, there's the little button at the bottom that activate that for your dishwasher. So I suppose it wouldn't make sense for your oven, but yeah, your dishwasher. So you would press your start, you wait till the peak comes on, and
I guess with a oven, it might make sense if you were cooking something like cakes and you knew exactly how long they're going to take, and then you could just let them cool in the oven once they finish cooking. So you had them ready for the next day.
It isn't actually available for the cooker by the looks of it. I'm just
looking at there you go.
It's for dishwasher and machines, dishwashers.
Yeah, so that makes far more sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense for a cooker, but very much anyway. But no, certainly use off-peak stuff is definitely a really good way of doing it, and it's becoming more and more common with events. I mean, the one problem I have with this setup of yours, I mean, it sounds really easy to use and good. The problem is it's an independent system again, isn't it? You couldn't really integrate that into any other part of your smart home. I mean, I was trying to think of a good example of that, but so all these washing machines and the dishwashers beep when they're finished, which is really annoying in some cases. But equally, if you're in a completely different room, you don't hear the beep anyway. It would be good to get some sort of notification that the washing machine is finished. And yes, you can have it on your phone, but if you're not living on your phone, maybe you could integrate it into your smart home system so Alexa could tell you that it's finished. And maybe it has got.
It does support Alexa. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know whether it's a trigger, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be a trigger to be of any real use, and that's a good integration. And I think Alexa is probably, as we've mentioned before, one of the better ways of integrating smart home stuff from disparate technologies. But it'd be nice if this was on Matter, or well, actually Matter's the way to go now. It's sort of the centralisation of all these systems, and it's been really slow to actually get fully set up. I mean, the difficulty with integrating all these smart home technologies is how many different things all these bits of technology actually do. It's how do you advertise the fact a cooker can do grilling, for example, and how do you set the control up for that, and can you share a control interface perhaps between issues and just have events off the back of them? And yeah, it's challenging, but I think that's my only one concern with it. Because I did look after you mentioned it the other week. I looked a bit into it, and it's quite impressive actually what they could do on that technology. But it is, as you say, very kitchen centric.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look. I don't think many of them. I can't see any triggers from them. So I'm just looking on Alexa now, and I can see the dishwasher is. If you go into devices, you can see that it's running. So you could probably ask Alexa how long you've got left on your program, but I can't see a trigger that it could use to like you said, send an alert or do the next step. So yeah, you do want, but it does support IFTTT, so maybe that's an option as well.
Yeah. One of the few things which does still support IFTTT.
Yeah. I think, like you said though earlier, Alexa is, for me, it's my main point of everything smart home, because you've got all these different manufacturers, but Alexa is where you can use all those. So that works for me, but other people use Google Home or Apple smart home. So you can, it's like you've got a hub for it then. The other thing I did as well is I was looking at, I think I mentioned that I sort of went against putting strip lights in, the huge strip lights. I did buy them and returned them, but I still wanted a bit of smart home stuff in there. So actually there's a pendant light that's been fitted. So I did buy a whiz bulb for it, which was nice and cheap, but it's one that's got sort of cool white and warm white, sort of, the sort of amberish color that you can do from it, and that was just I think it was an E27 type bulb, so the pendant is the nice pendant that my wife wanted to get, but I could just, rather than just pay, saying whatever it was, £4 for a bulb, I got £8 for the Wiz version of it and put that in, and that's on an Alexa. So actually I find that quite handy if you're walking into the kitchen at night and you've got your hands full. You don't have to reach for the light switch, because you can just tell Alexa to turn the pendant on, and it turns it on for you. So I found that quite handy, and I think the Wiz are owned by Philips, aren't they?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's. I will just double check that. But I'm pretty sure that's what I remember being the case.
Yeah, just but they're certainly they're a lot cheaper than Philips Hue. I mean, it's not color, but that I wouldn't have probably gone for color anyway in there. So I think the Philips Hue were maybe 20 odd quid, and this was like 8. So and they're in supermarkets as well, these bulbs, so they're not all that expensive, and they last a while. It's not like they blow like the old ones do. So actually, that was a nice, and again, very easy to get set up. But I do like having a bit of smart home in there. So the only problem I've got now is the usual one of people keep switching off the light switch for it, even though you never need to use it. So then when you do ask Alexa to turn it on, someone switched it off at the wall. So maybe I think that's a bit of a common thing for smart home users with smart bulbs, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. I still can't. I haven't been able to confirm whether Philips own Wiz. I think they do. I mean, Philips definitely sell Wiz connected lights, so that tends to point in that direction.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just maybe I'm thinking that wrong. But anyway, there is definitely some association with them. But it didn't need a hub. It uses its own app. It doesn't.
And they are Matter compatible as well, which is nice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and the hub Hue, you need a hub. This you don't. So it was a nice sort of compromise. A bit of smart home in there, but without costing a huge amount. And Wiz is owned by Signify. So I don't know if that is. But Signify are. I've seen them on the Mercedes F1 car, I think. So they must do more than.
Signify is the new company name of Philips Lighting.
Ah. Okay. So the Hue is the premium brand, I guess, then, and maybe Wiz is the not the lower budget one.
Yeah.
I've got one of those little Wiz portable lights. I've always enjoyed that. And the fact is, my desk, the whole desk where I am now, he's got a Wiz smart plug on it, which I always found really handy. So I just come into the office and say, turn on desk, and everything comes on. It's easier than going around switching on every synthesizer and everything else. So I think that works quite well for me. That.
Yeah, they're really good. I like the Wiz lights. I've tried a few of them over the time. They're pretty good.
Yeah. So that's my smart home. So like I said, it's good. It's very set up. It all works pretty well. Do you need it? Not sure. The two notifications I do find handy. The oven's up to temperature, and your dishwasher finished. Those are the two. So maybe I'll incorporate a few more stuff into them.
So I've challenged myself to say I need something to carry out a project. I won't say what the project is yet, because I'm going to surprise people with it. But I need a connected load cell, like a small scale. So something I can actually measure weight and have it transmit the weight to a smart home system. And I'm actually struggling to find anything. I've had plenty of DIY projects, and I can definitely do it with an ESP36 and or Raspberry Pi and do it that way. But I found nothing which is in the Zigbee line, the Matter line, or any of the Wi-Fi sensors, which is a connected scale. And I actually think this would be a really useful thing to have. I mean, pressure sensor, for example, is something which you can have, but they tend to be on or off, and it would be nice to actually have a degree of pressure being used to applied and things like that. Because I mean, if you actually think about something like a bed sensor to see if you're sleeping, if you actually have a pressure sensor under a bed, you can actually tell if it's just a light weight being applied or a heavy weight being applied. Whereas with a traditional switched base sensor, you have to be over the threshold to get it to work. Which, if you've got family which has got kids and animals and people, and you might want to actually distinguish between who's lying on the bed. So if the dog's on the bed in the day, you don't want to turn the lights on off or things like that. it's be really useful to actually have a sensitivity, something which actually has a sensor which can actually give that sort of weight and transmit it over the outlet. As I said, at the moment I'm only finding DIY projects. So if anybody out there, or any of our listeners, knows of anything which is actually retail and connected, that'd be really useful to know. I may actually end up building one myself anyway, but it's just an interesting challenge to actually find something which does that.
You can get the sort of the smart scales, but they tend to be Bluetooth, don't they? The Bluetooth
do,
the weight to your phone.
Yeah, Bluetooth to your phone, and they're not integrated in any way. They're not easy to get them. I mean, it's probably Akawa probably have got something along those lines which you could use with their hub, but and I don't really want a whole scales. I mean, even a kitchen scale is going to be too big for what I'm aiming for. I just want a single load cell effectively connected, or a way of connecting a load cell to a connected device. Because basically, if you ever look at a set of scales, they tend to have 4 load cells on each corner, and then they connect into a central processing unit, which actually does the processing of the weights. And they're averaging out the weight across the load cells. And there are standard chips for this. There's standard chips which actually take a load cell and turn it to amplify the signal from it and calculate it, and that's what you can use with an ASP or a Raspberry Pi to actually do it. Which maybe, but I just like something which could just work with my normal home automation system and just integrate into all the alerting stuff I've already got built into that. So that would be nice. But yeah, this is an interesting challenge.
Yeah, that's sort of putting an extra level on that presence sensor, isn't it? Actually knowing. It's quite an interesting idea that. Well, to see what you do with that. Yeah.
It's like if you actually get into many EVs these days. In fact, not even EVs, but EVs was where they started off. You control starting the car by sitting on the seat, and it's based on how much weight is placed on the seat, which is really quite good, because I've got a friend who's got a VW which has got this seat-based turning on and off sensor, and his daughter isn't heavy enough to turn it on, so she can sit in the front seat and nothing turns on, whereas as soon as he sits in, the car starts and it's ready to drive. And that's quite a good little sort of safety feature there, that you've got that. It's not just an on-off switch, it is actually a switch which is controlled by how much weight's being applied. The other thing it can do is to actually work out driver profiles based on weight, which could be a bit embarrassing, but if you gained a bit of weight overnight and your car doesn't recognise you anymore.
Get out, fatty.
Yeah. or skinny, but you weight.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of an interesting one in its own right. But there's lots of things you could do around weight sensing, which just don't seem to be taken into account. So I'd like to have a go at it, and if anybody's got any ideas, please let me know.
Yeah, I can see you're going to end up with a Raspberry Pi at some point in this.
Oh, well, I've got plenty of Pis, and I could definitely do it with a Pi and get what I want.
Or an Arduino.
Yeah.
An Arduino would do it, wouldn't it? If you can get the sensor, then you've it's just just matching it all up, isn't it? The sensor and the device to get it onto the network, and then the protocols to push it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain doing that, and I mean, I could one thing I could use is ESP Home, which is a set of, it's just a kind of like an operating system for the ESP32, that sort of range of stuff, and it plugs into a lot of the home automation systems. There's a plugin for SmartThings, for example, so I could use that on an ESP, and it has a lot of automation practice things on there as well. So that could work, and there's something I might look at that, because there's plenty of stuff already out there, and ESP Home's got some really cool stuff. You can actually have a voice assistant running on an ESP device, a bit like Alexa, but independent. That's quite good. And you can integrate that with things like Home Assistant to actually run it. So yeah, it's quite. And there's a whole set of interesting technology from a company called M5 Stack, and they do actually do a scale. So I've just looked up. So that's definitely an option I could use and do that with ESP at home. But they basically have a whole load of stuff which is just running over a single cable and just all connected together. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, so the smart speaker development kit costs $13.50 from them. So that looks like something which someone might want to be interested have a look at. But yeah,
Yeah, interesting project. Actually, well, there was one other thing on smart home I should have mentioned as well. I forgot to, I'd had those link devices for some time. I actually forgot to do the video, so I did get around to posting that. So I'll link the show notes, but I've got that video up. So that's a temperature sensor and a presence sensor. I think I've talked about them on the show before, actually. So they do all the usual stuff linked with the smart home, yeah, Alexa and all those things, but it's got like a person detection status, so you can see when someone, so you can see when someone's in the room, and you can set routines up for that. And there's temperature sensors and humidity sensor as well, so you can see those, and then you can select routines out so that when it's over a certain temperature, you could turn on the power switch, to turn on a fan or to turn on a heater or all that kind of thing. The person detected one, I did get working with an Alexa routine, so it says person detected in the living room and on the one in the office, so you could have that one. So yeah, you can see like for today, it's showing that I'm in there now. This person detected, but there's been no one during the day. So and that doesn't use motion; it uses presence. So a cat wouldn't. Well, I've not got a cat, so I've not tried it. But the idea is a cat wouldn't, or a dog may not set it off, whereas a human would do it, or maybe if something moves, it doesn't trigger it. You don't get some false positives, but it seems to work quite well actually. So I now get a little routine alert on my phone when someone comes into my office. So I haven't done any of the smart stuff with it, but I could set a thing up to say if I'm geolocation out of the home, then it can send me an alert when someone's in the office if I was really that bothered. I'm not really that bothered, but you could do that kind of thing to but I think it's more useful because you could have a camera that's probably if you wanted to do that, but it's probably more useful for sort of the light switches because there is a bit of a time lag on it as well built into it, so that if you leave the room and come back within 20 seconds, it's not constantly telling you that there's someone in, there's someone not in. There's sort of that sort of buffering on it so that it has a bit of period of time before it then triggers that. So I could have that light. I could have the hue light up there on, and when I had it on a motion sensor, I think probably last year when I had a sensor up there, every now and again it would go off because I'm just sat still talking and the light would switch off and you raise your arms and they'd come back on. But with the person detection, it actually doesn't do that, so that would make it more sense. So I might have a go at setting that up actually. It's no good in the summer because I don't really need it, but yeah, when it gets to winter, it'd be ideal that so that when I'm working from home, when I'm in the room and it's after daylight time, it turns the light on and that kind of thing. So I might have a go at doing that.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I do like the presence. The MM Wave style presence detectors are really good. I've got two sitting here as well, and I've been sitting pretty still for the last few minutes. I've been occasionally talking to you, and nothing's turned off in here because it is detecting my heartbeat, which is good.
Yeah. So yeah, so they're all useful. So all these sensors and thing are all like they're all useful. It's what you do with them that makes them smart.
It is, yeah. It's the intelligent home rather than smart home.
Yeah. So I think that's it for this week's show. Next week I'm going to do another live stream. So I'd love to see our listeners and viewers in there. So I'm going to be doing a bit of technique sequencing. I've been asked to create digital sounds on the mod wave, which I've done a lot of analog sounds, but it does do digital. So I'm going to have a go doing that and a bit of analog sounds on the digital wave state. So I think people are just finding weird things for me to do.
They're certainly challenges, aren't they?
yeah, that's it. Yeah. So so that will be 8 o'clock on the 20th, Tuesday the 20th, 8 p.m. UK time. That's 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Central European time. but it'll also be on YouTube as well, so you can watch that later. But if you've got anything you want to discuss on there, whatever, stick that on there as well. So my next thing I'm working on now is, someone said to me, I don't know if you're familiar with the Elton John song "Funeral for a Friend," the big synth thing at the beginning. Yeah. Made by David Hetchel on an ARP 2500, not a 2600, which was the fully modular one. But someone said, you must be able to recreate that. And I think when someone says something like that, yeah, I must be able to. So it sticks in my brain. So I am doing that at the moment. So what a brilliant piece of music that is at the beginning as well. So hopefully I'll have some, I'll get a video out of doing that as well. So yeah, that's it for this week. You can find out all the links are in the show notes. All the downloads for sound packs are on digital-lifestyle.com. Gary, where can we find you? You can find me on several places. Most of the social medias, you can find me at Gary WMA. That's Gary 2 R's WMA. And you can find me on my EV Owner channel on YouTube, which hopefully I'm actually going to have some content up on shortly. I've got to try to I've got quite a lot of recording and not actually edited it yet, but I will get around to that and get it all up shortly. Excellent. The editing actually, that it's I don't think, until you actually start doing it, you don't realize how much time consuming it is. I generally find a 30-minute video might take 2 hours of editing or something, so it takes an hour to film it and 2 hours to, or even more to edit it. Especially I've been doing only little tight the tight edits on the audio stuff, and with the chapters and everything else. It's time consuming, but it's good fun. I do like the editing stage of it. And I'm actually, I should give a shout out, I'm using the Camtasia Studio to do my video editing, because a lot of them is from screen captures, and I found that actually works really well. Yeah, so Camtasia is really good for some of this stuff. I mean, I keep thinking I must be able to get this done with AI. I must be able to sort of have a AI script which can go trawl through my normal videos and say, yeah, let me reproduce something exactly like that with this content. That'd be cool. Yeah, but an AI Gary. An AI Gary would be good. I mean, the thing is that editing. One of the biggest problems with editing, is, especially when you're doing multi-camera stuff like I do when I'm doing car videos, is coordinating the audio and making sure the lip sync's there. And I'm sure there must be some tooling which can do that a bit better. Well, I know there is some. Power Cyberlink, who we've spoken about the show before with their Power DV stuff, they've got their Power Director, and that does have a multi-camera thing which syncs up by audio, but it doesn't work particularly well. So it would be good to have something better, I think. That's an issue. I mean, because I'm quite often now filming an overhead of the keyboard on the phone. Camtasia is capturing the screen, and the voice over is either done by the Camtasia bit or from the phone bit, or sometimes both, and then I sync them back together, and the mics always pick up key noise, and I hate that. So I'm actually manually muting the sound during the key, as you're hearing the synth, and I keep thinking there must be an AI algorithm for removing that key sound. Whether you could teach it that is a sound I don't want to hear, and it can take it out, because that takes a lot of time as well. So I think there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I've tried some of the noise reduction type techniques, the AI sort of advanced ones, rather than just the usual methods for Audacity, and actually some of them work really well. So you can get it to remove traffic noise, say, or things like that. And, actually some of them work quite well. Right, well, so anyway, we'll see everybody back here in 2 weeks' time, but we'll also be on the live stream next week as well. So until then, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Yeah, take care.